Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Melvins Medical Podcast. I am your host with the most, Mr. Melvin Johnson, and today on Melvin's Medical Podcast, we'll be talking about Alzheimer's. Now, the thing about Melvin's Medical Podcast is I am not a doctor, so in order to help me talk about Alzheimer's today, I brought in a good friend of mine, one of the most decorated Alzheimer's scientists that I know, Dr. Joseph Lightsey. How you doing, Dr. Lightsey? Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Mr. Johnson? I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. So, Mr. Lightsey, we go way back. So I know all about you, but to tell the people a little bit about yourself, you've been studying Alzheimer's for 10 years. Is that correct? Well, yes, Mr. Johnson. I started back in 2010 after I finished undergrad. I went right on to grad school where I immediately fell in love. Within like my first few months, I found my research in Alzheimer's. I found like a fascination I had never felt before. Interesting. Well, with that being said, I think today I'll pick your brain and see how much I can get out of you about Alzheimer's with this in a few quick minutes. Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. If you had to describe Alzheimer's to just a regular person on the street, how would you do that? If I had to just describe it to somebody, let's see. I would probably tell them that Alzheimer's is just simply a mental condition, it's progressive mental condition, meaning it just gets stronger, commonly found in elderly individuals that affects things like the memory loss, the ability to function, and just carry on conversation, do everyday life things. Hmm. Interesting. That's a good description. I think I have to steal that one. Let's see. What about okay? How does it? What happens to the brain during Alzheimer's? We know it affects memory loss and those things, all those things you just mentioned. But what is it? What does it do? Can you get more in depth about that? Yeah, sure. So, um, one of the ways was the ways that the memory loss and things like the inability to carry on conversation or function are affected is through the shrinkage of the brain in general. So that's a thing that's commonly correlated with, or that's correlated with Alzheimer's, is shrinkage of the brain in areas like the hippocampus area, which is going to hold your memory, and as well as in the cerebral cortex. And actually, we're also seeing enlarging of the ventricles. And all of these things are going to affect, again, the memory loss, the thought function, things like that. Um, Another thing you might see, let's say if you were looking at the brain through a microscope, if you were lucky enough to get that chance, you might see things like buildup of amyloid plaques as well as tau proteins. And what these things are going to do, these things um, are normally produced in the body, but during Alzheimer's they're abnormally produced, and so they begin to denigrate the neuron transport system. So that means none of those neurons, we're not getting any nerve signals in our body. Or no, let me not say that. Not that we're not getting any, but the nerve signals that are correlated with memory, uh, again, the function and conversation loss, those kind of things. Uh, Without the neuronic pathway, you can't get those signals and carry out those functions. Makes sense. Makes sense. A few of those words I have to look up, but I think I understand what you're saying nonetheless. um, and so, final question. We'll go ahead and get out of here because I know you're a busy man. You got much more Alzheimer's to study, more people to save. Um, well, let's get into how you save them. What is the way that, how do they treat Alzheimer's? Well, there are kind of two types of, there are a few ways you can do it, two types of ways. One of the most common ways is in the form of a chemical called dompenzil. Um, is commonly known in medicine as in a few different forms. It has a few different names. Aricept is one of the common forms that your doctor might prescribe to you. But anyway, how it works is what's going to happen is it's going to it's going to break down cholinesterase. Excuse me. It's going to inhibit cholinesterase from breaking down acetylcholine. That's what I was going to say. So it inhibits cholinesterase from breaking down acetylcholine. And how acetylcholine works is it's essentially a neuron transmitter. So it helps transport those signals back and forth. And so again, what donepezil is going to do is going to inhibit um, cholinesterase from breaking down the acetylcholine. So and just to put it in kind of simple terms, that would be a way. That would be one type of medication that helps Alzheimer's disease. Wow. Well, that's very interesting. You are very knowledgeable, Mr. Lighty. Well, I don't want to hold you up for too long. Like I said, I know you got people to save more Alzheimer's to study. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. I want to thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you for or I want to thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you for having me. And that's a wrap, folks. That's been it for Melvin's Medical Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Melvin Johnson, signing off. See you later.